Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It is the review show. We're going to be looking back at all the weekend's hurling action, all the weekend's football action a little bit later on as well. We're going to be discussing Limerick's big win against Clare, 6 in a row champions, the very first time that Limerick, very first time that any team in Munster has won 6 senior Munster titles in a row. We'll be looking back at Kilkenny's absolute demolition of the Dubs as well. We'll be discussing Offaly, who beat Laois in the McDonagh Cup final. And we will be looking back at some of the weekend's Tailteann Cup action and even discussing, obviously, the draw that happened a little bit earlier today. So I suppose, Matthew, like overall, maybe in terms of both finals, I feel like the Dublin-Kilkenny game didn't probably live up to the hype, especially from a Dublin perspective. I thought Kilkenny were very good in fairness, but Dublin didn't challenge them. Like, it was so easy for Kilkenny in fairness. And then even the Munster final, it probably maybe wasn't the same as what it was in the last couple of seasons. Like the McDonagh Cup final now was absolutely brilliant. I think that was arguably the highlight of the weekend. But overall, maybe not. Maybe a bit of an anticlimax a little bit at the weekend.
Possibly, yeah. Thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, I suppose the Leinster final, people were expecting a high challenge, and a few Dublin fans were, and not just Dublin fans up in their county. I was as well. I thought Kilkenny were pretty undercooked this season. Dublin seemed to be getting a tune out of the O'Donoghue kind of regime, but Kilkenny just took over that Saturday night in the final. And I suppose the two of the goals in particular, both of TJ's goals coincidentally were just, it was almost like it was too easy for Kilkenny, and it was just a shame that it kind of ebbed out then. And to be honest, the Munster final, the most interesting part of it was a big push back to 4:30, and initially, like, I was actually a family gathering, so I actually was looking at the vote. I was thinking, some sort of crowd trouble had to happen in Thurles. But I looked further at the social media, and apparently it was a power cut. And I was like, Jesus, this doesn't happen in inter-county hurling. What's this about the Munster final? But look, the game itself, Clare made it interesting at halftime with Peter Duggan goal. Don't know how he got the ball in from there. But Limerick just kind of, plowed on and got the win after that, I suppose. Like, if Mark Rogers took that goal just nearly when the second half was over, when the ball hit the foot of the post, maybe we could have been talking about a different story. Maybe Clare would have got back into the game. But alas, it was Limerick's to win. And they've created history. Will they create more history? Time will tell, obviously. And the Joe McDonagh final, obviously, just the seats for the Offaly people after the game was just absolutely superb. And I will be lucky enough actually to go to Cork against Offaly next week, a double header with the footballers. So I will see Adam Screedy and all them in the flesh next week. So actually looking forward to that, and looking forward to a big load of Offaly fans coming to that game as well. So Offaly are on a high, and obviously the two provincial finals, it was easier than expected for Limerick and especially Kilkenny this weekend. But yeah, there was some interesting stories. Obviously, the Camogie, Derry beating Limerick was a big result. The ladies' football as well. Some interesting results this weekend and interesting performances as well. So a lot to get into, I suppose, in terms of importance. Not so much about the games, but looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll try to get through as much as we can. And look, we'll start with the big one: Limerick against Clare. Limerick 126, Clare 120. Limerick become the first team ever in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship to win 6 in a row. So an extraordinary achievement, obviously, from a Limerick perspective. Devastation for Clare. It's the 3 in a row, unfortunately, for them, and the wrong 3 in a row from their point of view. But yeah, absolutely huge from a Limerick perspective. Like, do you think the power cut had anything to do with maybe the flatness of the game at times? Like, what or what do you reckon? I mean, it was kind of it was an interesting one. I did find the game quite flat at times. To be fair now, I don't think it was really flat at the start. I think there was a bit of a lull towards the end of the first half and at times in the second half. But I mean, as you said before, like, it was a bizarre scenario. Like, and even, the people in RTE could barely even believe it. And they were even saying at one point that it could even be longer than half 4. Like, we weren't entirely sure. We only really got confirmation until about 10, 15 minutes before. But could that power cut have had any effect on either team in terms of nerves, do you think?
I don't think it would have had an effect on the Limerick players, because Limerick are used to dealing with intense situations. They've won All Irelands through COVID, through unprecedented times, let's just say. So Limerick players would have been experienced at this sort of level, like Garrett Hagerty, Tom Morrissey. They still would have got up for the game. As for Clare, there were a few inexperienced players in that. I know Adam Hogan had his breakout year last year, but that's only 2 years of the Clare panel. He wouldn't have experienced something like this at inter-county level. There's a few Clare players there, I'm sure, like Darrell Owen, who's pretty young as well, that wouldn't have experienced this sort of experience in a Munster final before. So it was going to be tough for the Clare players. For Limerick, maybe one or two, maybe Shane O'Brien, maybe Adam English, who came on later on. But the other players, it would have been, standard practice for them, and they would have got on with the game more or less. But I suppose, to be honest, the reason I think it died down a small bit is because Clare missed some unnecessary chances. Like there was a few in the first half. I think Tony Kelly hit a sideline wide early on in the game. He had Ian McCarthy hitting a free wide, which he usually would put over the bar. And these sorts of incidents kind of gave oxygen for Limerick just to keep going in the first half. So I think it was down to Clare that the game was kind of flat, but then Peter Duggan gets that goal. You're thinking, okay, Clare need to get a bit of fight into them. But I think, I can't remember the amount of minutes off the top of my head now, but I think it was a long time before anybody in the Clare team other than Ian McCarthy actually scored a point in the second half. So that was a worry from a Clare point of view, that they weren't shooting as regularly as they should be. And then you looked at Limerick getting that goal from Garrett Hagerty. That was just a sucker punch to the Clare guts more than anything. And Limerick kind of plowed on for there and won the game. And there were a few impressive performances for the Limerick team, I suppose. Like even looking at the turnovers, like I was doing stats later on in the game because I was out, obviously. And what I noticed from this Limerick team looking back at the game was the amount of turnovers that they got and the amount of points that they got from that, and their use of possession. Like they got in the second half, they scored 113. They got 111 from that from turnovers. That is, you know what? I would actually question that stat. I'd question my calculations and stuff if that was any other team. But because it's one of the greatest teams of all time, and because of the renowned pressure they put on opposition players under John Coyley, and the amount of effort that John Coyley gets out of this team, I wasn't surprised, because I think they got something around that nature in the All-Ireland final last year against Kilkenny, and eventually that's what got them over the line in Croke Park. So this Limerick team is renowned for us. And look at the assisters as well. I think Tom Clancy put up a very good tweet on X earlier today, Limerick freelance journalist that is. He actually said that Kyle Hayes got 1-5 assists yesterday. And it just shows, I think Kyle Hayes, honestly, and you could argue the penalty for the Cork game at Parky Keep was his fault, bring down Shane Kingston. But if you take that out of it, I think Kyle Hayes has been one of the players of the championship so far this season. The turnovers he's getting, the contributions he's getting, every point, every shot I think he took, he nearly put over the bar yesterday. He scored 2 immense scores as well. So I think from that wing back role, he's done absolutely outstanding. Barry Nash as well behind them. That left-hand side for Limerick have done absolutely brilliantly in the championship so far. And I think they've been the kind of platform to drive them on in the championship. But yeah, Clare just looked absolutely flat in this game. Like Ian McCarthy didn't look like his usual self. Tony Kelly, but I suppose like Tony Kelly's coming back. This is his first game that he actually started. And it was maybe a surprise to some people that he came in for a game of this magnitude to start. But he did look himself, it's clear to see. Mark Rogers scored nothing from play, which was unlike him. To be honest, the only Clare player, the only two, in my opinion, that you would maybe say put up a very good performance in the Munster final were John Conlon, who had a few good turnovers, to be fair to him, and Dave Fitzgerald, who scored 4 points from midfield from play. So other than them two, I don't think Clare were up to it at all in this Munster final. And when you look at the last 3 Munster finals in general, 2022 was a draw with extra time. 2023 was a point. This year's 6 points. Our Clare actually getting progressively worse, and that's not a bad statement for Brian Lowe. And I just think the Clare are maybe getting tired and weary and things like that. And I said it in my podcast during the week to you, Clare need to do one of these two things: beat Limerick in the Munster final. They didn't do that. Beat Kilkenny in the semi-final. Can they do that? Look at the form right now and look at the way Kilkenny pulverised Dublin in that Leinster final. Clare are now under the cosh. Even to beat Wexford in that quarter final, that's going to be very, very tough for them. So Clare are going in under the cosh in the quarter final. They have to get that confidence up and fast before a probable Wexford encounter. And yeah, it was a poor day at the office for Clare, but Limerick, what else could you say? But absolute legendary, 6 in a row Munster championships, probably the toughest championship across the 6 provincial championships in Gaelic Games, let's be honest. And Limerick have just wiped everyone. Getting 6 in a row, it's an incredible achievement, and it should be applauded as well. And even a photo put up on Twitter earlier today, I'm not sure if you see this art from Limerick Publications earlier today, with Peter Casey sitting on the bench with being injured, and obviously you had Kyle Hayes with him. You had, I think it was Colin O'Neill with him as well, Tom Morrissey. all with a comforted during Declan Hannon's speech lifting up the trophy. So, like, that just epitomises that Limerick are not just united on the pitch, but they're united off the pitch as well. And John Coyley deserves a lot of credit for moulding this team together for the last 6 years.
Yeah, and you know, I think that image as well really epitomised Limerick over the last 6 years, because like when you think about it, the amount of injuries they obviously had coming into this game, like no Darragh O'Donovan, no Sean Finn, no Peter Casey, no Mike Casey as well. Like he obviously didn't start. Cian Lynch, I don't think had his best game by any stretch of the imagination. Gets taken off with 20 minutes to go. But like you feel like no matter who's injured, no matter who's like out of the team, in the team, you feel like the standards don't drop. And like you bring in Shane O'Brien, scores 2 points, outstanding performance again, just like he was the last day. Like David Reedy, I think, has been absolutely brilliant since coming back in from a Limerick perspective as well. Then you've got lads coming off the bench like Adam English, Conor Boylan. Like the standards don't drop, and I think that is a real testament to John Coyley, Paul Kinnerk, the backroom team, all 53 of them or whatever. Like, you know, like I think, like to be fair, like they're getting the most out of these lads, and like when there's one or two players that come out, the other players just, you know, slot seamlessly in. And I don't know if the same can be said for Clare, because like when Clare don't seem to have the same firepower, the same players coming off the bench that are making a difference than Limerick, in my opinion, you know? So, yeah, I think that image, to be honest, it really sort of epitomised Limerick hurling over the last few years.
It definitely did, and you look at even the players that were there in 2018 up to 2020 at things like that, and they haven't been there yesterday. Like you look at Pat Ryan is off the panel completely. You have other players in and out of the panel over the last few seasons. Graham Mulcahy only came on for a 1 minute cameo basically yesterday, and he would have been a shoo-in to start over the last few seasons. But I suppose what John Coyley has built is a panel, and they are absolutely brilliant at bringing these players on. Aidan O'Connor, another brilliant youngster coming into the panel as well, getting that exposure more than anything. Donegal Jolly, who had pressed the league goal, he got 2 minutes of double time yesterday. Look at who came on as subs, and you would have said he was a shoo-in to start during the league campaign, but Shane O'Brien has come in, as you said, and has slotted in seamlessly into that full forward line. Tom Morrissey, probably one of the most underrated players in the country, and he was my man of the match personally yesterday. I think he was all over the pitch. He was getting turnovers in. He was providing intensity. He hit 4 shots over the bar as well. He was absolutely outstanding. And Garrett Haggerty as well was brilliant from wing forward, scoring a total of 1-2 as well. And to even look at Tom Morrissey, he took 5 shots yesterday, converted 4, which is absolutely incredible in its own right. Garrett Haggerty got 4 shots away, converted 3. Like the levels of these Limerick players, like they seem to go, when they go down in a certain game, they'll go up the next game. They will learn from experiences. And look at Garrett Haggerty's interview. He wasn't talking about the 6 in a row and things like that. He was saying, look, we are delighted about the 6 in a row. We just want to improve as a team. And we want to get up to win that 5th All-Ireland in a row. Because that's what this Limerick team is about. Even if it's after a brilliant game, a brilliant performance, they'll go on next game, next objective. We want to get up higher if we can in levels in the next game. And I'm sure John Coyley will be thinking that in the All-Ireland semi-final in a few weeks' time. And this Limerick team is here to stay. And a lot of people were making comparisons of this Limerick team and the other Kilkenny teams. And Limerick would have to increase their level in nearly every single game. You look at this season, their best performance in the Munster round robin, in my opinion, was the Cork game, and they lost that. Like it was almost like, what more could they do? And then they lost that game against Cork. But they somehow pinpoint what we could do better in the next game. And they go on to the next game and improve. And that's what Limerick hurling is. And it does epitomise what this Limerick team is about, that image. The Kyle Hayeses, the Peter Caseys, even after such a high and beating one of your rivals in Clare. And Clare and Limerick would have shared a lot of rivalry over the last few seasons. But even to park that for a bit, park the celebrations, and go to a guy that was unlucky to get that horrific injury a few weeks ago against Tipperary, and sit on the bench with him and celebrate a 6 Munster championship in a row with Peter Casey. I think that was amazing for the Limerick players, and it just epitomises, as you said, what this Limerick team is about: honesty and effort. And I suppose that's what will get them over the line in the Munster championship for this 6 in a row, and most likely will get them over the line for a 5th All-Ireland in a row.
Absolutely, yeah. A2 says here, clutching at straws, lads. Games went how I said. More scores for Limerick and Clare. mentally don't have what it takes. Can't bring myself to give Hayes any praise. He shouldn't even be there. Yeah, no, look, it's like it is obviously a bit of a touchy subject, and we probably won't get into it for multiple different reasons. But in terms of what he's been doing on the pitch, he probably has been hurler of the year, which might make for some awkward conversations later in the year. But like, he has been, without question, absolutely outstanding from a Limerick hurling perspective. Fell says, "Go on, Bull. This is your field." Yeah, look, I mean, to be fair, like Darragh O'Donovan like had that interview with Off the Ball at the end of last season, and do you know what, he might have been 10 12 points in, but he might have had the best prediction out of anyone, and that was that Shane O'Brien was going to go on and be one of the all-time greats. Jesus, yeah, I might have to go to Darragh O'Donovan for the lotto numbers. But again, to be fair, like, it does say how well they all know each other. Do you know what I mean? Like, and how well they're all training. Like, you'd love to get a glimpse on what they're doing behind the scenes. Do you know what I mean? You'd love one of them Amazon Prime documentaries or something like.
Yeah, you even put the idea in my head, Aaron, because you see what Amazon actually did with Manchester City over in England. They did a documentary with them, and you see what makes Pep Guardiola a tactical genius, and what makes that Manchester City team so good and so brilliant and so high above the rest. I would actually love to see that from a Limerick point of view. I definitely would. And more than anything, I would love to be a fly in the wall in that Limerick dressing room to see what is it about John Kiely that actually drives these players on each and every season. And he even got a glimpse of it in the post-match interview after the Galway game last year. I don't know if you watched that, Aaron. John Kiely was just saying that even when they were under caution against Galway, when Cathal Mannion scored that goal early in the first half, John Kiely was just saying, we just let the players at it. We just let them decide for themselves what to do on the pitch, because they're well capable of it. And John Kiely, the trust that he has in these players does show on the pitch as well. And you mentioned about Darragh O'Donovan, like, that was some prediction. It really was. And I suppose a lot of people at Mary, where Shane actually goes to university, would actually say the same thing. Like, Mary won the Fitzgibbon Cup over UL this year. Shane O'Brien was a major tar in that Mary team as well. And even looking at that competition, you would have said, yeah, he's definitely a big player to come into the panel. Even Adam English, who was on the other side of the coin in UL, had a very good Fitzgibbon Cup campaign. So these sorts of players are coming into the ranks. Aidan O'Connor himself, who came onto the pitch yesterday, was a UL student as well. Fergal O'Connor, a UL student. Like, they are getting experience in the Fitzgibbon Cup. Even Colin O'Neill, a UL student as well this year. Colin Coughlin, who I don't think was even part of the panel yesterday. I don't know, was he even there? He didn't even come on yesterday. And he's even a staple in that Limerick panel. Let's just say wing back. He can play centre back as well. So the younger generation of these Limerick players coming through the ranks is scary for the rest of the country. And even more scary, the commenter mentioned the bull Shane O'Brien there. The guy, from my knowledge anyway, is only 19 years of age. If that's true, he has another year in under 20 to develop. Like, this is scary for the rest of the country. And to be honest, like, I think Clare kind of missed the boat in this Munster Championship. They lost 3 championships in a row. I honestly think, look at the production coming through the ranks and look at it realistically over the next few seasons. The only team in Munster that can realistically challenge this Limerick team is Cork. Maybe they could be the saving graces for the next 2 seasons. But for now, this Limerick team, you just have to admire and watch them. They are just an incredible team. Of what they do on and off the pitch, they are just incredible.
Yeah, and I think that takes us on to Clare then, because obviously it was a very flat performance. Like, I thought they done very well to get themselves level at half time. Like, obviously Peter Duggan gets that goal, and to be fair to Peter Duggan, I think he probably was Clare's best player on the day. I think David Fitzgerald was absolutely outstanding in round midfield, half forward as well. Obviously scored 4 points, but overall, from a Clare perspective, like, it's 3 Munster final defeats now on the bounce. They've lost the last 2 All-Ireland semi-finals. There's rumours that Shane O'Donnell could be retiring at the end of the year. We don't know what's going to happen with Tony Kelly. He's obviously had a lot of injury problems. And who knows what will happen with him going into next season. John Conlon's been hurling for a long while. Peter Duggan's been hurling for a long while. So, like, you kind of look at it and you think, have Clare missed their chance here? And will they be able to actually get back to a Munster final next season? Like, and even get to a final? I'm not too sure if they will, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to see, especially with Cork actually improving. And you look back at the Páirc Uí Chaoimh game, actually, the game kind of swung in that game with Sean O'Donoghue got a red card. And Clare actually ploughed on after that. And You wonder if Cork had 15. I know it's ifs, buts, and maybes, but if Cork had 15 players on the pitch, they probably would have beat Clare that day. And you look at the Waterford game as well, it looked like the wheels were coming off, the 65, and it wasn't given, was it not given? But Waterford plowed back into the game when Clare looked very, very comfortable. And even in the Tipperary game, like, there were some sorts of errors in that Clare team, and you looked at Cork, Waterford, not Waterford, Cork and Limerick were putting away Tip with ease. And then Clare were struggling to beat them. And you might think, is there an actual problem with Clare? Is there seriously a problem here? And I would have thought the league, they needed the league title. And I wouldn't honestly say that a lot of people on social media were quick to react and say, okay, the league is the issue. Clare put too much into the league. Brian Lohan should have done this. I said at the start of the year, I believed Clare needed a trophy just to get on the board and show that they're up there with the Limericks, the Kilkennys, the teams of the past have done well over the last 3 seasons in league, championship, provincials. So I honestly think they needed that league trophy. But what they needed as well, and I would have said at the start of the year in regards to the league, it would have given them confidence to beat Kilkenny in a big game, number one, and to potentially get close to Limerick or even win the Munster Championship, number two. They haven't done number two. Can they do number one and beat Kilkenny? Like, a lot of people are backing Kilkenny to win that game. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about them in depth later. But Clare looked really, really poor yesterday. And as I mentioned, it took a long time before anybody other than Ian McCarthy scored a point, which wasn't good enough. Tony Kelly just looked off at Shane O'Donnell. Limerick kind of had them sussed out, and there was no going back from there. There was a lot of players be very, very quiet in the team. Like, even looking at Ian McCarthy yesterday, who was very, very good up until this year, and his scoring accuracy was very, very good. He took 13 shots yesterday, converted 8. Like, that's your free taker, and he didn't do it on the best day. That's not just Aidan McCarthy. Dave Fitzgerald, to be fair, got 100% shot accuracy for 4 shots. But as I said, other than David Fitzgerald and John Conlon, I don't think there was much of the Clare team that would actually put their hand up and say, I had a good game today. And you look at the other players, Peter Duggan wasn't really in the game much. Tony Kelly took 7 shots, converted 3, which for Tony Kelly's standards is not good enough either. Shane O'Donnell was in and out of the game, honestly. Mark Rogers did score anything from play. That was very unusual for his standards. Cathal Malone was poor enough. Like, there was a few of them players that were very, very poor yesterday, but they can rectify that by firstly beating Wexford in the quarterfinal and then beating Kilkenny. If they do not beat Kilkenny this year, Aaron, like, is it a bit of a failure of a year for Clare? And even a damning statistic before I switch to you, and I'm sure it's been branded around social media today and yesterday. Declan Hanlon has 7 Limerick Munster titles. Clare have 6. That's a worrying statistic from a Clare point of view. It really is. And you look at Shane, as Seamus mentioned during the week, Shane O'Donnell, David McInerney, Tony Kelly, John Conlon, all have All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship medals. They don't have a Munster medal, which is, they haven't won a Munster since 1998, and it's just a damning statistic from a Clare point of view. And they've joined an illustrious company. I think only 2 other Munster sides have lost 3 Munster finals on the bounce. I think Cork in the 60s. I think there was another team early on, the 1900s as well, that I've seen earlier. But Clare have joined that group now. And to be Brian Lohan, I'm sure the first year they were making progress. The second year, they could have felt hard done by, but to lose by 6 points yesterday. I know Limerick are an amazing team, but you just feel Clare, there was more in them yesterday, and it was just a disappointing performance. And even damning statistic as well, in a game of hurling, in a Munster Senior Hurling Championship final, Clare scored 112 from play. To me, that's not good enough to win a Munster title. And there'll be a lot of thinking for Brian Lohan to do once the quarterfinals come. And I have been bigging up Clare throughout the year, but the stats and stuff yesterday, looking at the game, they just weren't good enough from a Clare point of view.
Yeah, like, and the amount of times they got turned over as well, like, they were just, it just felt like they were hitting it in hope. Do you know what I mean? Like, up towards Shane O'Donnell, and like consistently getting turned over, and like that Limerick halfback line, like they all had the game of their absolute lives. Like, Jeremy Burns was outstanding, Declan Hannon was brilliant, Carl Hayes was obviously brilliant as well, and it was just like for Clare to consistently keep doing that over and over again. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I think Brian Lohan maybe has shown himself to be a little bit out of depth tactically, in my opinion. I think Clare, starting 15 wise, they have the ability, there's no doubt about it. They have some absolutely top class hurlers, and on their day they can beat anyone, in my opinion. But like this whole notion of consistently hitting it long, consistently getting turned over, you start Tony Kelly, Aidan McCarthy then is missing frees, so then Tony Kelly goes on them and he starts missing them as well. I don't know, there just seems to be a huge amount of disruption all around the team, and like it felt like they kind of just ran out of ideas at times. And the funny thing was they got a bit of steam towards the end of the second half, and it was mainly because they started to work the ball better and they started getting it into Mark Rogers, and I thought he was causing all sorts of damage. Had 2 good goal chances, one of them obviously hit the post, but like for Clare, like I just feel like I don't know, I feel like they were very one-dimensional yesterday, I think.
And they were making the same errors as they did against Kilkenny and Limerick last year. Looking at the league in particular, I thought that Clare would have wiped that out of their game. And look at even the stats on frees. It's actually a very statistic I look at. To be fair to the shots from play, they converted 65% of their efforts. But from frees between Aidan McCarthy, Tony Kelly, whoever was on them yesterday, 57%. 14 taken, 8 over the black spot. That's not good enough. It's not good enough to win a Munster title. It's not good enough to challenge a brilliant team like Limerick. And yeah, as A2 says there, yeah, they were a busted flush. They were tactically and mentally. And to be honest, like Wexford haven't been too good this year. To be fair, they have been making progress, but haven't been as good as the likes of Kilkenny's, the Limericks, the Corks, the Clares. But with Wexford's confidence at the moment, Conor McDonald seems to be on top of the world. Rory O'Connor is scoring a lot from play. Lee Chin is one of the top scorers this year. With Wexford's confidence and Keith Rossiter's belief to keep on improving this Wexford team, I wouldn't be shocked if Wexford go and beat Clare at this present moment in time. I wouldn't be shocked because Wexford have it in their DNA. Wexford should have beat Clare 2 years ago when Clare were off the back of one of the best Munster finals in history against Limerick. It taken them the extra time all the way with that Tony Kelly sideline. Wexford were worse back then under Darragh Egan. Wexford should have beaten Clare 2 years ago. Now, I think Clare are worse than they were in 2022, and Wexford are much better than they were back then. So, this is going to be an interesting encounter. That's obviously if Wexford overcome Laois next week. We'll have to see what happens there. But if Wexford do the predicted, I do think they can really put it up to Clare. Because you look at Clare yesterday, missing frees and things like that, and you look at Lee Chin or Rory O'Connor or whoever takes the frees for Wexford, you know once they put the sliotar on the ground, they're putting it over the bar. And they're converting about 70 to 80% at minimum. Clare yesterday, 50% or in and around that is not good enough. Simply not good enough from a Clare point of view. And yeah, even the turnovers yesterday, it seemed to be pretty even. 32 to Limerick, 31 to Clare. But as I said previously, Limerick got a 111 for turnovers. It was what Limerick were doing with the ball once they turned the ball over. Clare only got 5 points for turnovers in the second half, which again is a damning statistic. They got 1-4 in the first half from turnovers, 1-9 from turnovers out of a possible 120. Like that's 11 points for their own puckouts when Limerick were kind of going back into their shed and Clare were poking the ball over for long distances. With Limerick scores, it was hard work. With Clare, once they were doing the hard work, they were then poking the ball wide. And I just feel like too many errors in their game. Too many instances where they're hooking in front of Shane O'Donnell and the ball wasn't sticking. So Brian Nolan kind of needs to change his tactics a small bit, deviate a bit, come to quarterfinals, or else I think Wexford will really put it up to them in a few weeks' time.
Absolutely. A2 says here, pick a half-back line, lads, Burns, Hannon and Hayes, or Walsh, Hogan and JJ Delaney. You know, that kind of took me on to what I was going to discuss next, because obviously with Limerick winning the Munster Championship, with them winning the 6 in a row, there has been a lot of comparisons between obviously the great Kilkenny team that obviously won 4 in a row, nearly won 5 in a row. Plenty of debate obviously online, plenty of debate even in comment section of some YouTube videos and stuff. Where do you stand on it now? Like, are Limerick now the greatest hurling team of all time? They've already equaled what Kilkenny done in terms of 4 in a row. They've already equaled them in terms of, you know, winning every provincial title during that 5-year period, which Kilkenny obviously done as well. And if Limerick go and win the 5 in a row, it 100% cements it if it hasn't already. But in your opinion, are Limerick now the greatest hurling team of all time? And is there even a debate about it now? Like, or should there even be a debate about it now?
It's interesting because I obviously interviewed TJ Ryan, the manager before John Kiley, for the Limerick Voice earlier on this year. And he said that if Limerick win the 5 in a row, which is very, very probable now, looking at the odds and things like that, it would put the argument to bed. Limerick will be the greatest team of all time. Maybe that was TJ being a Limerick bad, but honestly, I agree with him. I agreed with everything Daddy said about this Limerick team. They have made this team the group that Limerick have in a fan base believe that they can get up further along the pedestal. And I suppose when you look at where Limerick were compared to where Kilkenny weren't necessarily a bad team around 04 or 05 before the 06 to 09 or whatever under Brian Cody. They were getting drawn out of the finals, they were getting drawn out of the semi-finals. They weren't necessarily a bad team. Limerick got beat by Dublin in 2015 with Dottie O'Callaghan, I think, hitting the back of the net, and Joe Culling was managing Dublin. That was a poor performance from a Limerick point of view. They lost to the qualifiers 2 years of the bouts after that again, to Clare and then to Kilkenny. The next season then, under John Coyle, they win the All-Ireland. Like, that just epitomises, they have had to come through the depths of despair to the very top. And that to me epitomises well. And the fact you throw into it, in Munster, Limerick have been tested week in, week out by every single team. By Waterford, by Tipperary, by Cork, by Clare, and then in the All-Ireland semi-final as well. When you looked at Kilkenny, that's not to take away from the Kilkenny teams of the past, the likes of the Jackie Tyrrells, the Jays, the Delaney's, the Henry Shefflins, the Eddie Brennans. That's not to take away from them. But when you look at the provincial championships, they came up against a Dublin team that weren't ready, against an Offaly team that were going downhill, a Wexford team that were going downhill. Galway didn't come into Leinster, and Seamus Brady, I'd credit this because he made a very good point on this last year on my podcast. Galway only came into Leinster in 2009, and that was at the end of the Kilkenny kind of reign of dominance. So I think Kilkenny got it easy up until the All-Ireland semi-final, and potentially the final as well, because you look at the semi-finals as well in the past few seasons in 06, 07, all them. They faced against teams like, I'll go back to Cork in 2010. Cork really fell down to them. 2009 against Waterford, the game looked very comfortable from very far out. Against Cork in 08, Cork didn't put up much of a test in. You look at Limerick in the past few seasons, in Munster and in semi-finals. Galway put it up to them in 2022. They still got over the line. Clare put it up to them in the Munster final in 2022, took them all the way to extra time. Limerick still found a way to win it. Kilkenny, even through that goal for Paddy Deegan to put them 5 points up in the All-Ireland final, you think the game's dead. Limerick still find a way to get over the line and beat them. And I just feel like teams have put it up to Limerick more than that Kilkenny team in 06 to 09. And honestly, Aaron, I think the only teams that you could relatively say that put it up to Kilkenny around that period, that's, again, no disrespect to them, but it was Tipperary with Liam Sheedy in charge, and potentially Waterford. And even that Waterford team in 08 under Davy Fitz got absolutely slaughtered by Kilkenny in the final. When you look at Limerick, Clare have given it to them, Kilkenny have given it to them in the All-Ireland Championship, Tipperary gave it to them last year when they drew against them, Cork beat them this year. So, like, I just feel like this Limerick team have been through nearly every single challenge that they've been put up against them, whereas Kilkenny could have maybe been tested more around the 06 to 09 reign of dominance under Brian Cody. So, in my opinion, Limerick are the greatest team of all time. And if, as TJ Ryan said, the Limerick boys, if Limerick get that 5 in a row done, it would cement the argument once and for all. Limerick are the greatest team of all time, undisputed.
And is the argument, though, maybe, and I've more so seen this from other people, I don't necessarily have this opinion myself, but that Kilkenny maybe were just that good, and that's why they were blowing teams away. Like, that's why they were blowing Offaly away. That's why they were blowing Waterford away. I think they gave Limerick a hammer, and I think I remember in a semi-final or a final at one stage as well. Like, is the argument maybe just that Kilkenny were that good that the competition, like, it wasn't necessarily that the competition wasn't good, it was more so that they were just so good. Or what do you think? Or maybe that's clutching at straws a little bit. To be fair, I probably think it is.
Yeah, maybe it is, because I'm honestly looking back at the All-Ireland semi-finals over the last few seasons. The ones I remember from Kilkenny's reign of dominance. 2010 against Cork. Cork were way off. And then context is important here. With Cork, you could mention, yes, Sean Oak was there, Sean O'Halpine, Ben O'Connor, John Gardner, all them players. But Cork were after a player strike in 2008. So Cork were really, really poor back then. I look at the other teams. Dublin were ready, as I mentioned. Wexford, I'd love to see it from the point of view of saying that Kilkenny are the greatest team of all time. Just a question. When did Wexford actually get to All-Ireland quarter-final or an All-Ireland semi-final in that time frame? When did Offaly do it? When did Dublin do it? Galway did it a few times, but they didn't come into Leinster until 2009. Limerick weren't good back then. They had a few issues themselves. Justin McCarthy was in charge back then, and they were very, very poor in the field of play. Clare were nowhere to be seen back then. Like, I don't think Clare were really a great team around that time either. So in Munster, you could only look towards Waterford and Tipperary. And when you looked at that Waterford team in 2008, they only scored 1-9, I'm sure, that All-Ireland final. And even for the goal that Waterford scored, I remember Kilkenny brought out a goalkeeper. He made an error for Owen Kelly's goal that time in the All-Ireland final. And it was almost like, if PJ Ryan was a goal that time, maybe it could have been a different story. Maybe Waterford wouldn't have scored a goal that time. Tipperary, granted, they did put it up to Tipperary or Kilkenny rather, for so many seasons. But that was the only team. And that is the honest truth. But when you look at this Limerick team they've come up against, Galway, who really tested them under, whether he's under Shane O'Neill in an All-Ireland semi-final or Henry Shefflin in an All-Ireland semi-final, Galway have put it up to Limerick at times. Kilkenny have put it up to them over the past two All-Ireland finals. Cork beat them this year. Clare have given them an almighty test in 2002 in the Munster final. So I just feel like Limerick have really overcome every challenge that they have been put up in front of them. Whereas Kilkenny, at the same time as well in 2009, at the end of that reign, Kilkenny really got hammered. I think the scoreline was 4 goals and 17 points to 119 or something like that, where Lara Corbett scored a hat-trick. Do I think this Limerick team will concede 4 goals in Croke Park in an All-Ireland final? I might be proven wrong the next few weeks, Aaron, but I don't think they will. I honestly don't think they will. I know they conceded 3 against Cork a few weeks ago, but they will not concede 4 goals. They won't concede 4 goals. And yes, Lara Corbett scored that hat-trick, and it was an amazing performance from him. But Kilkenny, it was poor defensive performance that day, in my opinion, from that Kilkenny team. So I don't think Limerick are capable of conceding 4 goals in an All-Ireland final, if that's what I'm trying to say here. So I just feel like Limerick are better than this Kilkenny team. And maybe the people that are saying Kilkenny are the greatest team of all time, I just feel like that's maybe grasping at straws, saying the Wexford and Offaly were a decent level that time.
Absolutely, yeah. But let us know, obviously, in the comments in terms of your opinion on both Limerick and Kilkenny. Yeah, just all of a sudden there started choking on my tea, so don't worry, folks. We'll hang in there. We'll hang in there. Speaking of teams, maybe choking on the big stage. Unfortunately, Dublin 118, Kilkenny 328. As I was saying, was there in Croke Park, an absolute disaster, really, of a game from a Dublin perspective. Like, really, really poor from a Dublin perspective. But like, you have to give Kilkenny a huge amount of credit. Like, they were absolutely brilliant. Like Adrian Mullen, obviously back on the side, I think scored 7 points in total. But yeah, like, top class performance from Kilkenny, but for Dublin, really, really poor.
Yeah, terrible performance really from Dublin. It just seemed like they didn't get out of the traps or anything early on in the game. I know Owen Cody scored that goal, and maybe it would have given the Dubs a bit of a kick up the backside when that happened, but it was just error after error from Dublin. They were running into tackles. They were getting dispossessed. Then when they put the ball long, Hugh Lawler and Mikey Butler and all them with the Kilkenny full back line were absolutely dominant there. And it felt like early on from the game, Dublin just weren't at the races. And Kilkenny eased the victory in the end. And even as I mentioned at the start of the chat here, TJ Rees, the two we see these goals were probably the most easiest goals that he's ever going to score in his career. I'll be honest, like Sean Brennan dropping the ball, that's just, maybe it was just nerves from Sean Brennan's point of view, one of his first Leinster finals, and I'm sure he will learn from that mistake, but that was a poor mistake to make when the game was probably the melting pot at that particular stage. But as Seamus mentioned on the pod last night, which you were on, by the way, once it was 2-10 to 5 points, it was almost like curtains, done, simple as. And even for the puck out at the end, it's something that you don't see in a provincial final. Like Sean Brennan puck, I think it was to Paddy Smith, correct me if I'm wrong now, are turning the ball back, or turning his back to the ball, and the Kilkenny player just says, "Oh, thank you very much," catches the ball, TJ Reid bang back at the net. It just looks so easy, and it was just poor from any standpoint for Dublin. But look, Kilkenny had to play what's in front of them. Adrian Mullen back into the team is a huge boost from 7 points. I think he's took 7 shots as well and converted 7, which was absolutely incredible from him. John Donnelly, an incredible performance. There was rumours he had a broken thumb during the week. Didn't look that way on the pitch. He looked like the John Donnelly that we've seen all season. Keane Keddy was very good as well. Cody chipped in a small bit with 1-1. TJ Reid a decent performance from his standards as well. But Dublin just looked very, very poor. And even the goal that Dublin scored, like, it was almost like I think even you look at the temperament for the Kilkenny players compared to the Dublin players. Dublin conceded 3 goals. Dublin, each and every goal, it was almost like, conceded a goal. But then when Kilkenny conceded the goal to Mark Rogan, Owen Murphy went ballistic at the Kilkenny defenders, saying that this is our standards, we cannot concede goals here. And it probably just epitomises the difference and levels between Dublin and Kilkenny. And that's just unfortunate, because I obviously you're a Dublin fan, Aaron, and Seamus is. I'm not obviously a Dublin fan, but I was hoping Dublin would really beat Kilkenny and would put it up a test in Croke Park. It just didn't seem that way. Unfortunately, it was just an easy day out for Kilkenny. Hopefully, they will get more of a test against Clare or Wexford or whoever it is in the All-Ireland semi-final in a few weeks' time. And yeah, I'm sure Derek King will be happy with the performance. But Dublin, a lot to work on in a few weeks' time, probably against Cork. And it's probably going to be one game, Aaron, where I'm probably going to come on this podcast and say that Cork are a better team than Dublin. But look, I won't rub it in, because I'd love Dublin hurling to be back up to where they want to be at an All-Ireland semi-final. And I'd obviously love Dublin hurling to come up the ranks in the next few seasons, but it doesn't look to be this season, unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah. Fel says here, next year the Leinster final will be the opener for the Joe Mack final. A2 says, still fuming about how bad we were. No problem losing the game, but they came out onto the field waving white flags, back to square one. Cork could get a record scoreline. Also a good suggestion here. I think future Kilkenny and Dublin games should be 35 minutes of football and 35 minutes of hurling. Yeah, I'd completely be up for that. I would be completely down for that, in fairness. But yeah, like, I watched the game back like yesterday evening, and I thought, like, Dublin, I don't know what it was, but like Dublin just weren't doing what they'd done all year. Like, I mean, like, we weren't getting in the faces of Kilkenny. We were just playing, like, we were playing the same running game, obviously, that we were playing against the Cats, obviously, when we played them in Parnell Park. We were playing the same running game that we played against Galway. But I don't know, like, just the intensity, the way we moved with the ball, like our application. I think someone even mentioned as well, like, a few lads in the parade didn't even have their helmets on. Like, it just felt like preparation-wise, we weren't up for the occasion at all. And, like, whether it was a case of, like, we bought too much into our own hype, because of, obviously, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, Kilkenny are on the ropes a little bit, like Dublin will have a chance. Well, I don't really know, but like Dublin were so poor and really, really not at the races. And it was definitely, you know, like, I know we have had a few batterings against Kilkenny down the years, but like in a Leinster final, like, that was so poor. And like, for me, I know Seamus was saying, like, after 25 minutes, like, the game was done. But for me, like, after the Owen Cody goal, it just felt like heads dropped, and it felt like we stopped playing and we didn't play to what we usually do. And yeah, like, I think massive soul searching for Dublin, really, because like, there's no way we'll beat Cork. Like, let's call it spade a spade.
There's always hope, Aaron. There's always hope.
You're just trying to play it down now.
The yara talk, but yeah, look, Dublin. I'm sure Micheál Donoghue or Dublin fans in general would have been happy to get a Leinster final and to challenge Kilkenny, or get to a Leinster final, and that would probably be the aim for Dublin. But I've been speaking to Seamus and you for so many years now. The frustration with the Dublin hurlers, off anyway, is that you cannot produce a big win in Croke Park against one of these sides. Every time you go to Croke Park, like, you look at the Limerick game earlier on in the year, you get absolutely slaughtered. You could see 3 goals and 30 points. You could see 3 goals and 28 here. Like, a Cork team in Thurles, like, that's going to be, it's going to be a sobering experience more than anything for Dublin, and I'm sure you're not looking forward to it at all. But look, it's a learning curve for Dublin, and they have to take these learnings going into the next few years, because honestly, you look at the league, Dublin were very, very poor. You look at the league, the Leinster Championship game campaign as well. Like, the only game where Dublin looked exceptionally good was the Antrim game. Let's call it a spade now, because you looked at the first game against Wexford, they needed 2 late goals to draw that game. The Galway game, Donny Burkett sent off. I do still think Dublin would have gone and win that game because I thought Dublin's attitude was much better than Galway's in Salt Hill. But that red card kind of swung things. The Carlow game, Fergal Whiteley gets the goal. That was a fluke goal, let's be honest. Carlow could have beat Dublin that time if things were different. But yeah, maybe it's a learning experience for this Dublin team. It is a learning experience, and they have to take these learnings for this year and move on next year into the league. Because I think, aren't they Division 1A next year? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. If you are in Division 1A, that will probably give you the exposure.
I think, yeah. I think 1B.
1B? I think it is. I'm not sure, to be honest. But yeah, you will play Waterford in 1B anyway, and Waterford are still a top tier team. So that will probably give a bit of exposure and what to expect from the bigger teams in future years. But yeah, to be honest, like, I'd be worried for Dublin and Leinster, because even in podcast during the week we were saying that this was a huge opportunity for Dublin to win Leinster, considering Kilkenny would not be as bad as they have been in the provincial championship group stage. Offaly will improve. Wexford seem to get a tune from Keith Rossiter's team. Galway won't be as bad as they are this year. So this was a big opportunity for Dublin, maybe to stake a claim and put in a big performance in Croke Park against Kilkenny. It just never settled out. And it was just unfortunate, really, watching it. Even watching the highlights last night, it would just look like Dublin were kind of off the pace and they didn't deserve to get there in the Leinster final, which was a shame, because Dublin players, I'm sure, and Micheál Donoghue himself, would have worked so much to get into this Leinster final. And just to put up a performance like that was really, really poor from Dublin point of view.
Yeah, Ryan says here, where Dublin built up 2 late goals to draw with Wexford, struggled to beat Carlow, and we're losing to Galway before the red card. Yeah, it's said that to Seamus yesterday, and obviously Matthew, you alluded to it there as well. Like, maybe in hindsight, when you actually look back, we weren't maybe as good as what we actually thought we were, but still very disappointed, and I still think we're a lot better than the performance we put out. Fell says here, hey Matthew, you still have to beat the faithful first. I think Offaly will probably give you a better game than Dublin will at this stage. The only thing is, and we'll probably get onto it in a few minutes, like, it's a week's preparation for Offaly. Like, I think it's scandalous, really. Like, you need to give them more than a week. Like,
you would, yeah. And Cork, I'm sure, would have, took glories for the Munster Championship, and they would have been even more energised than they have before the Munster Championship over the last few weeks. They were energised going into the Tipperary game after a week of a hard slog of a game against Limerick the week previous. So imagine what the rest will do for these Cork players as well. And it's just a shame, because you obviously want a very good game, you want a competitive game, but like for Cork, it's not going to be really a competitive game if Offaly are only getting a week, is it? And to be honest, you have to beat yes, we do have to beat the faithful first, well pointed out, but we did hammer this Offaly team in the league too. So you have to imagine the Cork would beat Offaly. Let's call it a spade, and if Cork don't beat Offaly, they'll be some soul searching for the Cork hurlers. But yeah, look, that's for next week's preview. But yeah, Offaly next week.
Yeah, and I suppose before we get onto that game, just on Kilkenny, like, are they back now to their best? I mean, this was a brilliant performance, as you said. Like TJ Reid, obviously, with 2-6. You had Adrian Mullen, who, like, slotted back in, obviously coming back from injury, and he was absolutely outstanding. I think 7 points from him. Owen Cody was very impressive. John Donnelly, as you said, didn't look like he had an injury. If he did, he certainly got over it very quickly. So, like, Kilkenny are there. And, like, one thing about this Kilkenny team is, like, yes, this Kilkenny team is not the same Kilkenny team of the 2000s that were winning multiple All-Irelands, or even the early 2010s when they were winning multiple there as well. But they still have that, like, Kilkenny DNA about themselves, where they still often find the way when it matters the most. And, like, I hate to say it, but I could see a world now where it's Kilkenny and Limerick in an All-Ireland final, unless there's a scenario where Wexford beat Clare and then there's an open draw and Cork end up getting Kilkenny and Limerick end up getting Wexford. But I think, like, I don't know, like, I could see Kilkenny back in the final if they play Wexford or Clare in a semi-final. So, but yeah, like, a Kilkenny back in the All-Ireland stakes for you?
You have to say off the back of the Leinster performance, absolutely, because they put away Dublin with ease. But you have to take into account as well that Kilkenny weren't playing much. Dublin looked kind of beat as soon as the old goalie goal or the TJ Reid's first goal went in, and it was just so easy for this Kilkenny team. And they won't get that amount of space in an All-Ireland semi-final against whoever they play, whether it be a Clare. It could be Cork, because there is a situation if Cork and Wexford both win in the quarterfinals, then it would be Cork against Kilkenny and Wexford against Limerick. So the draw would be actually switched because of provincial repeat fixtures and things like that. So, like, if they were to play a Cork or Clare in this semi-final, they're most likely going to play a Munster team. Let's call it a spade a spade. It's going to be a much different game than the games they have been playing in Leinster. And this Kilkenny team do draw the card a few weeks ago as well. So there are still some question marks for the Kilkenny team, but I do agree with you. There is a world that they do reach the All-Ireland final, because Clare seem to be in a worse state than they were last season. They'll get the Munster final. Wexford or Cork, like, you don't know, Cork and Kilkenny and Croke Park, will it take a life of its own? We'll have to see. But it's going to be tough. But I do think that Kilkenny will probably play Limerick in an All-Ireland final again. From a neutral point of view, it's boring. It is boring that we get this All-Ireland final and the third time in a row that Limerick will be Kilkenny in an All-Ireland final. You just hope it won't be that way from a neutral point of view. But I think Kilkenny are in a very good position at the moment to reach the All-Ireland final. It's just a shame that the fans don't get behind them, but that's a discussion for another day.
yeah, it is. We probably don't have the time now to be going through it, but without doubt, whatever's been said about Kilkenny fans, I think has already been said, in fairness. But Offaly 223, Laois 26 points. Obviously, as you said, the precursor in the Joe McDonagh Cup final. Massive win from an Offaly perspective. They obviously get back into the Lee McCarthy, I think, since 2018, I think it is, if my memory serves me correct. So absolutely massive from an Offaly perspective. Paddy Purcell was brilliant for Laois. Thought he had a very, very good game. But overall, like, Offaly got the job done. Like, Oisin Kelly obviously coming up trumps in the second half for the Offaly men. So yeah, huge for the faithful.
Big win, yeah, and what a week capped off for Offaly, and Adam Screeney scoring that point near the Cusack stand side was absolutely outstanding. And like, these Offaly players look just on a high, and you look at Dublin and Clare, they look devoid of confidence and things like that, and other teams losing at the weekend look devoid of confidence. This Offaly team looks like nothing can stop them at the moment, and probably could, let's call it a spade. Cork will probably stop them next week, but they look in serious form at the moment, these players, and to produce a brilliant performance as they did in the under-20 last week and come back and beat Laois and Croke Park is a testament to the players. And Johnny Kelly deserves a lot of credit. Brendan Barr coming into the backroom team as well. And obviously the goals, Brian Dighton scoring on early on, and he was the top scorer for overall and from playing the Joe McDonagh Cup. So congratulations to him. And his father Michael as well, I'm sure, is absolutely proud of him. And Oisin Kelly, like, the injuries that he's been getting over the last few seasons, and to get that goal in the second half, which was a deciding factor in the game, was a massive moment for him. Killian Sampson scoring a decisive score as well later on in the game. He obviously was in the UL team in the Fitzgibbon Cup earlier on in the year as well. So yeah, Offaly, very good win from them. It seems like they're top of the world at the moment. And Johnny Kelly again and Leo O'Connor from the under-20s deserve a lot of credit for getting Offaly back up the ranks again, because like in 2018 and 2019, they were dark years for Offaly. They got hammered in the Leinster Championship, went down to the Joe McDonagh. I think they went down straight away to the Christie Ring, because I remember Donald Cusack talking about it. It was before COVID. It was 2019 that they went down. So to spend that long in the Christie Ring, then to get to the Joe McDonagh final last year, only to lose to Carlow agonisingly after that Chris Nolan point. And then to come back this year to beat a Laois team that were on a high, I will have to say. Like, Paddy Purcell still had a very good performance. Aaron Dunphy, Willie Dunphy, like, they were threatening players in this Laois team. They were very good players. They produced a good performance themselves. They could feel hard done by. But it was Offaly's day. It was Offaly's week. What a win for them. And the faithful are back in the Leinster Championship. I honestly believe, Aaron, they can stay up at the expense of Antrim next year. Look at the trajectory this team is going at the moment. The under-20s winning. I just feel like this Offaly team is on the way back up, and it will be interesting to see, can they break into the top three in Leinster next season? Because I think with the trajectory that this team is going on, I think they have a serious chance of doing it.
Yeah, I think they've serious potential. There's no doubt about it. And I think in a few years, I think there's no doubt that they probably can break into the top three at some point, probably. in the next 3-4 years. But whether they can do it next year, it's probably too soon, in fairness. But look, as you said, like you obviously have the young lads in there, like Adam Screeney, Dan Burke, both have been outstanding. As you said, Ben Duigan has been absolutely brilliant, obviously, as well. Owen Cahill, like Killian Sampson, like experienced lads, obviously, in the Offaly team as well as obviously some of the under-20 players. So, like, the future is bright from an Offaly perspective, but you do just hope, like, for their development that they don't go up to the Leinster Championship and just get hammered and then come straight back down. Because, like, I look at the Offaly footballers, and, like, they had a huge under-20 All-Ireland win a couple of years ago, and then obviously go and, you know, like, last year was going all right, things were going all well. Very bad league this season, hammered by Dublin, and then, like, you saw what's happened to them in the Tailteann Cup. They've lost every game. So you just hope, like, if they go up into Leinster, they can be competitive, and it's not a case where they get hammered every week. But to be fair, I think they'll take confidence from what Antrim have done, from what Carlow have been able to do, and I do think it is very probable that they could stay up next year.
I think so as well, and I think they've got the right people in at the right time. Like, even you mentioned the Offaly players and things like that. The mentions have to go as well to Michael Duigan. The stuff that he does behind the scenes for Offaly, and obviously he has a lot of work to do with RT, and even to put his heart and soul into Offaly GA the way he has is absolutely commendable. Shane Lowry giving them a lot of support as well, and like, it seems like a well knitted together group. And we talked about Limerick earlier on in the chat here, but Offaly are coming on the ropes very, very well as well, with the camaraderie that is there as well. To get Brendan Maher in the backroom team, to get Johnny Kelly on board, to get Leo O'Connor on board, I think this is a well-oiled team effort of a machine. It really is. You see, with some counties in general over the last few seasons, you see a disconnect between the senior team and the under-20 team. There seems to be a huge bond between the under-20 team and the senior team this season, no matter what games are coming up or whatever. Like, even during the Joe McDonagh, Adam Screeney, Dan Burke, Donald Shirley, all them type of players actually were let go by Johnny Kelly to play in the under-20 championship and win that All-Ireland. And as soon as that was done, they bring them back into the Joe McDonagh fold and they go on and win it. Like, it seems like everybody's smiling in that group. Everybody's happy. The fans are happy. The management team are happy. The board members are happy. And most importantly of all, the players are happy as well. And it just seems like a very good camp to be in at the moment from an Offaly point of view. And just looking forward to see the buzz that will be around Tullamore next week when Cork come to town. So yeah, it should be a very interesting few years for Offaly. And they are on the way back. And I suppose Neil McManus' comments during the week saying that the Leinster Championship should be increased. When you look at Offaly's upward trajectory, the fact that Antrim, or a team that will come up from the Joe McDonagh in the next few years, will conceivably go back down once Offaly get a bit of momentum going, there could be an argument to say there should be more teams in the Leinster Championship in the next few seasons.
Absolutely, yeah. I think they should expand it. Like, I think you could even have a scenario where you have 2 groups of 5. The top teams from each group go straight into a Leinster final, and then the 2 second place teams battle it out for the third place position. I think that's definitely something that they could look at over the next few years. But yeah, like, Offaly go on to play Cork, and Laois will obviously play Wexford. I've seen a bizarre scenario as well, and it's probably not going to happen. I mean, it won't happen. But, like, if Laois were to go on and win the All Ireland from here, they would still be in the Joe McDonagh next year. It's a little bit mental, isn't it? Like,
there has to be some loophole in that arm. Look, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Let's call it. It's not. Simply, Laois, they have made strides this year, to be fair to them. And Willie Maher is doing an incredible job at the Laois hurlers and getting them back up the pedestal as quickly as possible. But they are not going to win the All-Ireland, simple as said. But look, in that scenario, there has to be some sort of a loophole. If the Joe McDonagh finalists somehow win the All-Ireland, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if something does happen in the future that is ridiculous as that, there should be a loophole to say you have free ticket to the All-Ireland next year. There should be something on that. But look, Aaron, there's no point in discussing. At least you're not winning the All-Ireland. So look, there you go.
There we are. Yeah, no, look, I think you'd get what, Leicester City odds probably for them to go and do it, probably even more, in all honesty, probably even more unlikely. But there we are. Sorry to squash your hopes and dreams, Laois supporters. But look, you are still in the Tailteann Cup, so you still could win that. And we'll discuss some of the Tailteann Cup action. And yeah, they did beat New York 113 to 1-9. I was watching this game obviously on GA Go. It was on Saturday or Sunday morning. And you know what, New York, like they gave this a right good go, and they were very, very unlucky not to win the game. Like Bobby O'Regan, I think, with the early goal, an absolute, like, what a finish, like absolutely brilliant stuff, like one of the goals of the championship season. And what's even more bizarre is that they probably have one of the misses of the season a little bit later on in the game. But like New York, like, and especially when Laois went down to 14 men as well, you were thinking like massive chance here for New York, but in the end, Laois pulled through.
Yeah, a big win for Laois, and I suppose the performance level from Justin McNulty's team wouldn't have been up at the standard that they have been all season, but they'll be just happy to get out of jail, get out of Dodge, go to the next round and play against Kildare, which will be a big derby next week. I'm not sure. To be honest, Aaron, where is that game going to be? I know we'll get on to, we'll talk about this game in due course here, but where is that game going to be?
I think Tullamore is what I think Clare are nominating Tullamore as their home venue, and I think it's going to be on the Saturday. But the hurling's on the Sunday, isn't it?
Wait a minute. There's a double header involving Cork on the Saturday.
That's on the Saturday. Okay.
Yeah. This is on the it's on the Sunday. Oh, that makes sense. Because I was wondering, would they have a triple header with Cork? There'd be a lot of anger there.
Yeah, I'll have to double check that, actually. I thought someone said it was Saturday, but yeah, like that wouldn't make sense at all. Like that would make zero sense. So it would have to be on the Sunday, you'd imagine.
Yeah. Look, I trust Kildare for making these unnecessary issues. But look, no, this isn't a podcast to slam Kildare fans. They've had a brilliant season. Look, they'll probably beat Laois next week, let's be honest. But Laois themselves, very good performance in this game. Obviously, Mark Tibbetts to score that goal coming up from full-back. The guy's 38, Aaron. How many times is he going to come up from full-back and score crucial goals in the Tailteann Cup? It's in this guy's DNA. It's almost like a Ronaldo situation, Aaron. As soon as he gets older, he seems to get better. I don't know how you compute that, but look, brilliant finish by Mark Timmins. Mark Barry had a good performance in the second half as well. But New York, as you mentioned there, had a serious opportunity. And to be honest, I was like you. I was looking at the score of this game and see New York were ahead at half time. I was thinking, okay, this could be an interesting game. So I just switched on Diego and seen the second half. And then when Sean Fitzpatrick gets sent off, I'm thinking, New York have a massive opportunity here. But the goal chance they missed, look, if you're going to get into the quarterfinals of the Tailteann Cup, you cannot miss goal chances like that. And it's just an unfortunate scenario for the guy to miss it, unfortunately. And then for Mark Timmins to score that goal down the other end, he probably dusted the game under the carpet in many ways. But Evan O'Carroll had a good performance from a Laois point of view as well. But look, it wasn't the best from a Laois point of view. They'll say, Justin McDulty will say in the dressing room, look, we got over the line. Next game against Kildare, and we'll go on to that next week. But New York will be absolutely sickened seeing as the chances they missed.
Is it the case maybe, like, because Laois have been here numerous times all year throughout the league, like they've been in this situation before, like not just this year but last year, they get regular games. New York don't get that. So I feel like when Laois went down to 14 men and I was watching New York, it was almost like they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to use the extra man. There was probably a huge amount of pressure, obviously, as well, like missing that big goal chance. And it was one of them scenarios from a New York perspective where they don't play that many games. So, like, how are they supposed to know how to actually see a game out when they're in this type of scenario? And it is very unfortunate. And it's one of them age-old debates. Like, how do we solve this? Do we try and get New York more involved? But then it's going to be financially more, impossible or whatever. But I don't know what you do, to be honest.
Maybe you could have an overseas Gaelic Games Championship. Yeah. Something like that. Something like involving New York, London, Uganda J, or making strides I'd seen on Instagram as well. You could have them on board. You could have Australasia involved, Australia, New Zealand. I interviewed one of the PROs over there as well, and they seem to be doing a Trojan work there as well. There's Germany J, there's France J, Scotland J as well. There's Warwickshire, Lancashire involved in the Laurie Bar Cup and hurling as well. Why not involve all those from overseas and put them into like a world championship for Gaelic Games? I think that would be an excellent idea for me. And maybe to publicise the junior championship a bit. I know there's the junior championship that does start in All-Ireland football semi-final weekend, where it usually is the curtain raiser to the All-Ireland semi-final, which happens on the Sunday over the past 2 seasons, where Kilkenny, New York, London, and I think Warwickshire get involved in the last 4 of that competition. I think, honestly, London and New York's A teams need to get involved in that, just to get them more exposure and get them more games and things like that. Not just New York and London's B teams, because I think like the players that aren't involved in that from New York and London's point of view, they need to get more involved in those sorts of games, in my opinion. So, yeah, I just think it could be a very good thing to have an overseas championship. I think it would be a massive thing for the GA, and just to expand the game more than anything. And you see what New York have put up. They beat Leitrim from last season. They put it up to Laois and Carlow last season in the Tailteann Cup. Let's not forget. London did well in the group stage. We'll get to them a bit, really put it up to Antrim as well, to develop them as well. And when you looked at it during COVID, like even for Michael Maher to get a win in the Alliance League, that time I think it was 2022 after COVID, that was seen as a massive achievement for London, if I remember correctly. So like they would have been under the cosh after COVID, and for them to get more games, that was brilliant from their development point of view. But an overseas championship, I'd be all for it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it'd be a great thing, and obviously we've discussed it before, and I think we were mentioning during the week, like Boston GA, like a huge amount of clubs over there. So it's definitely something I think they really do need to look at, in my opinion. Other game, Limerick 1-18, Tipperary 1-10. Comfortable enough win in the end for Limerick. Emmett Rigder with 1-3, Danny Neville with 4 points, Josh Ryan in there with 3 points as well. Interesting enough, Paul Kelly, Tipperary manager, has since stepped down, so he's left his post as Tipperary manager. Very, very comfortable win for Limerick, and probably expected, really, with them being at home.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose, like, even there was a chance in the game to make it even more comfortable. I think Danny Neville had a goal chance when I watched on the Sunday game last night. He decided to fist it over the bar, so it easily could have been 2-17 to 1-10. It could have been a nasty day for Tipperary indeed. But look, for Limerick, and a lot of people who criticise the Tailteann Cup and All-Ireland Senior Football Championship structure with the group stage and not enough jeopardy and things like that. When you look at Limerick, they lost 12 games in a row after the game against Down in the Tailteann Cup. They've now won 3 games in a row. Jimmy Lee's side are beginning to gain a bit of confidence now, and that's what should be encouraged for smaller teams. I don't get the people complaining about lack of jeopardy and things like that. The likes of Limerick need confidence like this, confidence boosters, just to get more wins on the board and things like that. They look like they're on top of the world now, this Limerick team. And they do a Sligo next week, and I think Sligo will go in as favourites in that Tailteann Cup quarter-final. But regardless, after the turbulent league season that they had, I think all said and done in the championship, in Munster as well, where they pushed Cork at half-time in the Munster Championship, I think Jimmy Lee's side have had an amazing year. With the performance that they had in the league, in fairness to them, Danny Neville coming back in, Ian Corbett coming back in, Emmett Richter looks like a star for the future. I think the guy's only 20 years of age, and he has a lot more to give in the tank. Darren Murray's another good guy coming up through the ranks as well. So Limerick, the players, the confidence is going to come back into the team for next season, and I'm sure they'll be one of the favourites to go back up straight away to Division 3. So I think Limerick are doing absolutely brilliantly in this championship campaign. And fair play to them for getting this win. As for Tipperary, look, it's been a turbulent year for Paul Kelly, and for him to step down as well. I'm sure there was comments in the Irish Examiner or some outlet earlier today saying that he was complaining that strength and conditioning coaches were going here and there in Tipperary football, that is. And that's not a good sign. It isn't a good sign. Look at Tipperary football, because what they need is a bit of confidence. And you look at Limerick, they're getting confidence. Tipperary aren't. And it's really, really poor from the Tipperary point of view. And yeah, it's going to be hard to see if they go back up the ranks in the league and championship next season. They've had a very poor year, lost to Waterford, only had 2 wins across the league and championship this year. And ultimately, that isn't really good enough. And for Paul Kelly to leave after doing such a good job in Dublin championship sides at club level, like, it's a poor state of affairs for Tipperary football.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And considering where they were a couple of years ago, like, it has been a massive fall from grace. We have Leitrim 1-11, Wicklow 2-15. Massive win, obviously, for Oisin McConville's men. Dean Healy there with 4 points. Kevin Quinn scoring 3 points as well, 2 of which were from play. I think a lot of people were expecting this game to be closer. I think this was one of the games you looked at and thought, okay, like, fair enough, it wasn't actually a home game for Leitrim because Park Sean McDermott is under renovation. So I think they played this game in Glennon Brothers Park. But overall, it was a very, very comfortable win from a Wicklow perspective.
And well done to Oshie McConville winning the Battle of the Pundits, as you christened it during the week, Aaron. Yeah, brilliant win for Wicklow. Kevin Quinn was an amazing form of this. John Paul Nolan getting 1-2 was an impressive performance from him as well. Dean Healy, very good. Chris O'Brien. So Wicklow are gaining a lot of confidence. And even during the league campaign, like Limerick, they were getting a few batterings. But in the championship itself, they beat Westmeath. They pushed Kildare all the way. They got into the preliminary round in the Tailteann Cup, and obviously beat Leitrim pretty comfortably. And they go into the Down game now under no pressure, nothing to lose next week. And I think Oshie McConville has done a very, very good job with Wicklow getting the confidence out of these players. So credit has to go to him and the whole Wicklow team as well. So fair play to him for a brilliant season so far. They obviously play Down next week, and we'll see how they get on that. As for Leitrim, look, I think they've had a very good year regardless. They got out of Division 4, and they more will be happy with the progress they've made. They'd be disappointed with this game, obviously, just falling short of a quarter final. But yeah, Andy Moore has had a very good year as Leitrim manager. Mickey Graham has definitely helped in that role as well. And Leitrim will go into Division 3 next season, and they'll hope to get a few good games under their belt.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, huge win from a Wicklow perspective, and it will be very interesting to see how they get on the next day against Down. Last game then, Antrim 3-11, London 2-10. Maybe a game that people actually thought would be, I suppose, a little bit more comfortable for Antrim. Like, it actually was a little bit closer. And I was keeping an eye on this, I remember on Scorebio, London scored 1-1 early on. They were looking comfortable at early stages, and then obviously Antrim sort of kicked into gear and took over from there. But yeah, big win from an Antrim perspective, and but again, fair play to London. The fact they're able to be this competitive away from home against a very solid Division 3 team, I think bodes very well for the future for London football.
It does, yeah. A very good win for Antrim in general, and I suppose London getting that fast start with 1-1 without reply early on the game, as you mentioned, that could have made a lot of Antrim players nervous. But to be honest, they stuck to the game plan. Rory McCann getting 2 goals, Durham McAleese getting the other one as well. Ryan McQuillan scored 2 excellent points from an Antrim point of view as well. And it was a good win. It was a good win. I know London pushed the ball all the way, but London had a very good Tailteann Cup, in fairness to them. And maybe we took them a bit lightly in the podcast during the week. Kieran Diver again had a very good performance. Josh Oberhor, Stephen Durden and Michael Carroll getting the goals for them. So very good performance for London. They'll hold their head high going to Division 4 next season, considering, and again, as the competition has gone on, despite them finishing third, game by game, they've got more confidence, London. And we'd like to see that for as more teams as possible lower on the in the league campaign, because you looked at it, London and Waterford were perceived as 2 of the worst teams in the All-Ireland or Tailteann Cup. And 2 of them teams in particular have got confidence boosters in game by game by game. So I think it's a massive thing for London to get to preliminary quarterfinals. I don't care what anybody says. It's a very good objective for them to get from Michael Barr's team. But for Antrim, into a quarterfinal next week against Fermanagh, which is normally a tight encounter, and they'll go into that game, fancy their chances of small.
Absolutely. And looking at the quarterfinal draw, Down versus Wicklow, Sligo versus Limerick, Fermanagh versus Antrim, and Kildare versus Laois. So yeah, just look at that Kildare Laois there. Actually, it's the only game that's on the Sunday, from just having a look at it there. So yeah, it is going to be on the Sunday in Tullamore. Looking at that, I mean, you would probably look at it and think Down should beat Wicklow, Sligo probably should beat Limerick, Fermanagh, Antrim, Kildare Laois could be up in the air. Kildare should beat Laois. They really, really should, especially given Laois's performance against New York. We do know how flaky Kildare were. If this game was a couple of weeks ago before the Tailteann Cup groups, I'd nearly be fancying Laois, in all honesty. But yeah, what you make of that draw?
The thing is, this is a Kildare team that is susceptible to a shock or two. And when you look at it, actually, when you look at the league campaign, they got beat comfortably by Fermanagh in the League Division 2. Laois only lost to Fermanagh by a point in the group stage. That could be a tight game. Laois and Kildare. Let's not forget, Laois only lost to Fermanagh by a point. It's known as the Midlands Derby or the Mick O'Dwyer Derby. I'm not sure what it's christened as per se, but it should be a very good game nonetheless. Sligo against Limerick. Look, I think Sligo should win that game, but Limerick, the confidence they're on is normally a tight game. You would expect Fermanagh to have enough for Antrim, but Antrim did beat them at the Tailteann Cup last season. So there's every chance that Andy McEntee side could overturn the Turtle there. And down against Wicklow, you would have fancied Down to win that, especially at home. So yeah, I think it should be Down, Kildare, Sligo and Fermanagh. But I expect Antrim and Laois especially to put up massive tests.
Yeah, absolutely. We lost you ever so slightly there halfway through, but I think we did get there in the end. Moment of the week, player of the week. What would you be thinking?
Moment of the week, I'd probably have to go for Will I go for Offaly? Yeah, I'll go for Offaly win the McDonagh Cup. It was a massive achievement for them. But special mention, obviously, to those players that were the photo for Peter Casey, Kyle Hayes, Colin O'Neill, Tom Morrissey in the same photo for their teammate. I think that was a special moment as well. Player of the week, I'd probably have to go for Tom Morrissey. I think he was absolutely exceptional in that game against Clare. I think he was exceptional in that Munster final. So in football, probably player of the week, I'd probably have to go for. It's a tough one again. I'd probably go for Katie Quirk for Cork, scored 1-3 against Laois and LGFA. And moment of the week, probably Limerick beat Tipperary to get their third win in a row. And I think that was a massive achievement for Jimmy Lee's side. So those are the awards this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's completely fair. Yeah, I think for myself, I think moment of the week I would go towards the Limerick hurlers. Look, obviously winning 6 in a row was absolutely massive. And then I think in terms of player of the week, I would probably nearly say either Cathal O'Neill or Kyle Hayes. I think both of them are brilliant. But I think I'll actually go with Nicky Quaid for Limerick. He made a huge amount of big saves throughout the game, and I do think he is a very unsung hero really in the Limerick team. Maybe not so by Limerick fans, but especially by maybe outside supporters and whatnot. And I think from a football perspective, probably go with Rory McCann, 2 goals there for Antrim. And looking at the Laois New York, do you know what? I think Emmett O'Keneal had a very good game actually, to be fair, for New York. So you could probably nearly lean it towards him. But look, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up here. Make sure to check out the Gaelic Statman podcast when everyone gets a chance. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will catch you all during the week for the preview show.